Hey guys, what's up? Tyler here. Today we're going to talk fall largemouth bass and how to catch them. I'm going to just kind of do a little tutorial video for you, just another one of our how-tos. I'm gonna kind of cover everything. So I'm going to cover areas to look for them, baits to throw, and then kind of how to use those baits. Where I'm at here today, I'm kind of just at a little pond thing. I don't even know if I'm gonna catch a fish in here, but I just kind of want to use it for a demonstration purpose. So before we dive into baits and things like that, I'm gonna talk about where to look for them really. So first things first is they're gonna start pushing out of their summer patterns early in the fall. So they're gonna start, kind of moving in shallower. And once you really get into the full swing of fall, you gotta think food source for them. They're trying to pack on as much pounds as possible going into winter. It's just like how animals hibernate, really, is they know a slower season's coming up, so they got to put on some weight for that time because they're not going to want to feed as much here in the next couple months. So you got to really think food. That is like the number one thing to think for largemouths in the fall is food. They're going to be looking for bait fish. In most lakes, whatever it is, it might be bluegill, it might be perch, might be shad, who knows, whatever your lake is, those bait fish that those largemouths like feeding on, that's where they're going to go. And a lot of those bait fish in the fall are going to push up in your shallower depths. So you're really going to be looking a lot of them shallow spots that you might find them in the spring. You're looking those weed lines in that 4 to 8 feet of water. You're looking up on docks or rocky shorelines or a channel wall, something like that. But really, a lot of your search pattern can be less than 8 feet of water. Like, you don't really need to look in deeper than 8 feet in the fall. They're probably going to be, in shallower, in tight, feeding, and things like that. The good news about the fall bite, it can be one of the best bites of the season. So, especially that October time frame, late September into October, that can actually be some of the best largemouth fishing of the season. And it's a great time to hit the water. So that's kind of the basis of where to look for. One other tip I'm going to throw in is you don't have to get up at the crack of dawn and hit it right at dusk every night. Going during the day is fine in the fall. Once that water temperature starts to cool, go fish at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. A lot of people won't be on the lake anyway at that point, and it's warm for you and the fish. And it's normally when the bite's actually going to be at its peak is kind of through the mid-afternoon hours. You don't have to worry about going, getting up and getting on the water at 7 in the morning, 6 in the morning, or whatever, or staying until 8 o'clock at night. A lot of times that bite is going to be at its peak during the middle of the day. So that's one last tip I have for you. So now that we have... Babe, that's a bass. It's not a bluegill.
Well, it's a little bass.
Okay, sorry, I'm going to have to cut that part out. I'm going to just stop that. Alright guys, so now that we got kind of locations down, I'm going to talk baits a little bit. Honestly, one of my number one go-to largemouth baits in the fall is a swim bait. Just like this. Okay, I got a little swim bait jig head. Let me get this set up so you guys can see it better. So just a little swim bait. Try that again. Just a little swim bait jig head. Hopefully that's focusing in on it. And babe, I need help. My go-tos for largemouth in the fall is honestly a swim bait, and these can actually work really good for smallmouth too. So if you're fishing for smallies, this is a good carryover that works both ways. And I'll let Melissa zoom in here on my setup. So this is pretty much really simple. Jig head, I think that's an 1/8 ounce. I want to say it might be quarter. I don't remember. You know what? I think it's 1/4 ounce. Nope, it is an 1/8 ounce. Okay, 1/8 ounce. That's an 1/8 ounce swim bait jig head there. And then I got a Kitech. I think that's a 3.8, might be 4.2 somewhere in there. You get right about that 4-inch range. That's what you're looking for, like 4. You can go a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller if you want, depending on what you like. But right about 4 as an average is a good swim bait size. I love using like whites and silvers and that kind of color, those flashy colors like that, because I really think a lot of times it mimics bait fish. kind of feeding up near the surface. It really looks like a school of minnows kind of flashing. And then obviously this is a paddle tail swim bait. It's got the paddle tail on it. And this thing's really easy. I mean, it's as simple as it gets. You literally just got to cast this out here, and all you have to do is seriously is just a slow, steady retrieve. I don't really jerk this. I don't do anything. I don't change the speed even that much. I literally just almost always just slow, steady retrieve. Just enough to get that tail thumping, and a lot of times that's enough. A lot of times they're going to be going a little bit slower in the fall because they're a little bit colder, and a lot of times they'll go crazy for this thing. So that's pretty much the swim bait. It's, like I said, it's a really simple bait, but it does get me a lot of bites, especially in the fall, and it does a good job of doing that. So that's like one of my #1 baits. So I'm going to show you another bait. So bait number 2 I'm going to go to, I like throwing jigs in the fall. A lot of guys kind of, I think sometimes, not all the time, but a lot of guys I think sometimes thinks that jigs are kind of just a summertime thing. I don't think so, for sure. I mean, I really think that in the fall they do a great job. If you throw them up on cover, so trees, if sometimes rocks, if there's any weeds remaining up by shore, like lily pads or something, they work great around that too. They're really a good bait for just going slow, and a lot of times, like I said, they'll get you bites too. And yeah, so I do like going to the jig. This is just kind of my little setup here. There's all sorts of different types of jigs and stuff. I'm not going to get too much into that, but this is just a little casting jig. I think it is, I want to say maybe 3/8 ounce. I'm not sure on this one. It's either 1/8 or 3/8, I think. But yeah, so like I said, it's a pretty simple rig, and all you got to do with these, there's all sorts of ways you can fish these, honestly. You can swim them back to you where you just kind of steady retrieve. You can kind of swim them and hop them up and down. A lot of the way I like fishing it is I kind of fish it like a Texas rig or a wacky worm. I kind of let it sink, and then I just kind of slowly pop it up and down and just kind of work it back that way. And that's how I like working them. But then, like I said, there's different types of jigs. You're going to work different ways, but that's kind of how I like working it. And yeah, like I said, that's probably another one of my favorite fall time baits. So that's the jig. I'm going to show you, I think, 2 more baits. So we're going to switch up again here. Alright guys, so my third bait I'm going to show you, very, very simple. Probably one of the simplest rigs you could ever use, the wacky rig. This is probably, like I said, one of the simplest things. All this is a 2/0 wide gap hook, or maybe 1/0. I think I'm using 1/0, sorry. 1/0 wide gap hook, and then I'm using, this is a Missile Baits, the 48 is what it's called. That's the type of worm. I don't know, it's some sort of blue and, I don't know, green flake. I don't know what's in there. But bottom line is you literally just take some type of Senko and rig it right over the middle part of the worm, over the shank of the hook, and then just slide it up there. Really simple. I always fish mine weightless normally. Some guys will use weight sometimes, but I always normally fish them weightless because Senkos are normally pretty heavy to begin with. So yeah, that, like I said, another one of my favorite baits. If you use Senkos that are like about 4.5 to 5 inches normally, those are normally the best ones, I think, for wacky rigs. But yeah, like I said, that's another one of my favorites. How to fish this, which we do have a video on this, so I'll probably put that at the end of the video. We have a video all about wacky rigs and how to use them. But it's really simple. You just cast it out, and then you're just going to kind of constantly twitch it back. So you're just going to kind of pop the rod back, let it sit for a minute, and then just kind of twitch it back again, let it sit, twitch it back, and then that's pretty much all there is to the wacky rig. And like I said, we have a whole video on using them. So another great time fall bait. It's kind of a slower, it's a balance between a slow and a fast way to fish. You know, you can still cover a fair amount of water, but you're not working it as fast as a crankbait or something like that. So those are 3 that I really like. I'm going to show you one more, and then I'll wrap it up. So I'm going to get that out, and I'll be back with you in a second. Alright guys, so last thing, and I don't have it tied up right now, so I'm just going to show you, is some type of top water, or this is a popper here. You can use spooks as well. So a lot of guys know how to use poppers and spooks these days. It's very common lure. So I don't really have a demonstration to give you because I didn't have it tied up on a rod. But yeah, popper's really simple. Just pop it across the surface. Spook, kind of the same thing. You're walking the dog. Like I said, those are 2 very well-known techniques. And topwater is a great, like I said, another great fall time bait. Once the water starts to get colder, you know, you start getting into late fall, and you might even see the water temps start getting into like closer to the 40s. Topwater might not be as good. I think the prime topwater is typically like high 50s, low 60s, all the way up to like 70 and beyond that. But once you get below like that low to mid 50s, I just don't think it really works as good. I don't think the fish are quite as aggressive enough to come up and hit it. Not to say you couldn't get some bites on it, but I would probably change techniques a little bit at that point. But a lot of times your water temps in the fall are going to be in that 55 to 70 degree range, which would qualify topwater as being a great bait to use. Yeah, so I mean that's pretty much my favorite baits to use. One thing I didn't really talk about a lot is crankbaits, and that's another great thing. Crankbaits or jerkbaits, those are two more great baits to use in the fall. I just didn't really cover them as much. And I actually really like using crankbaits and jerkbaits, but I can't cover everything for you, sorry. It's just kind of what I had tied up on my rods, and I like using a lot. So hopefully those tips help you a little bit. And like I said, fishing in the fall can be a great time to get out there. Some guys even will catch their biggest fish of the year in the fall. So it's just like the spring. It's a great time to get out there. The fishing is normally great, especially if the weather's still good. And yeah, so hopefully that helps you guys out with some fall tips, and we're gonna keep the how-to videos rolling. So thanks, and hope you enjoyed. This isn't big, I'd be very surprised. Like when I set the hook, my rod was like bent all the way over. Maybe it's not, I just saw it a little bit. What is that a pike or is it a, oh, it's a tiny one, dude. Or what is that? That ain't a pike, is it?
Yeah.
Why is it a yellow on its fin? Babe, that
is
ain't
it a
no
muskie?
pike. It's a walleye. Dude, it's a walleye.
What? No way.
Isn't it? Yeah, it definitely is. Dude, I've never caught a walleye before.
What the heck? You're gonna have to wear it out before you get it to those rocks.
I was gonna say, because that did not feel like a freaking pike at all. Dude, this might be a mess. Dude, this is like perfect eating size. Don't snap, don't snap, don't snap. Isn't that what it is? Yeah, it's definitely a walleye.
What?
What the heck, dude? My first walleye!
Oh my gosh. Gotta get the pliers. Definitely legal too.
What the heck?
Just a big old perch.
Well, dude, when I kept seeing the fin, I'm like, that ain't no pike.